Welcome to Rescue TV. I'm delighted to welcome back Dr. John Demartini, author of The Values Factor, human behaviour specialist. And today we're going to talk about something that's very, very interesting in the time of social media and non-stop comparison, which is body dysmorphia. And you've got a very interesting example of a client of yours who was experiencing this.
Well, anytime an individual, particularly women who have a very high value on beauty, compare themselves to other people who they perceive and admire for their beauty, can compare themselves to them and minimize themselves to that part that they admire in others.
Right.
And the more extreme that difference is within themselves to that person, the more they can distort their view inside their brain about how they look. And they may not even realize that they're quite beautiful, but they will perceive themselves less beautiful than they actually are and not give themselves, they're not recognize their magnificence. So anytime we subordinate to somebody that we think has something we don't, we can distort our views of ourselves and minimize ourselves.
So in the world of social media, where you go to bed or you wake up and you're going through your feed and all you see is image upon image upon image of beautiful women, and you think, my tummy doesn't look like that, my bum doesn't look like that, my boobs aren't that high anymore. We never used to have this. So how can you, with this flooding of information that shows you constantly how you don't look as good as you used to or as should or other people do, how can you catch yourself and change that?
Well, what I have done with women who, because I've had the opportunity to work with that quite a bit, is I've had the women identify, first of all, who are they comparing themselves to? Because I've not seen it once without being comparisons.
Right.
There's always an underlying comparison. So if the comparison is, like I had this one lady that was comparing herself to J-Lo many years ago.
Right.
But then I happened to have some actual pictures of before they cropped and before they altered the pictures. Her real pictures didn't intimidate her.
Right.
The after pictures did.
Sure.
So they had distorted the picture on the Photoshop.
So the body dysmorphia was based on dysmorphic photos of the celebrity.
Of the celebrity.
Wow.
But what I did is I had them go and identify what is the trait or the posture or whatever that is different, and then ask them, so where do they have whatever they see in this person in their own form?
Okay.
So what we do is we tend to think that their form is better than our form, but the truth is we have the form. We cannot see something we admire in other people without that being inside us in our own unique form.
I'm going to ask you a really kind of basic question. So let's take the J-Lo example, for example, and say that the person says, I love her hair. She has beautiful, thick, flowing hair. I have thin hair. How do you find that, as per your example, in your own form?
Well, first we define what that is about the thick hair. Why is that so valuable?
Right.
We say, well, it's an attractive trait or it's
sexy
or whatever. Then we go and ask, so where and when do you demonstrate an attractive, sexy trait in your own form? And identify.
So it's not the hair.
It may not be the hair.
It's what it represents.
Because if you look very carefully, every woman, every supermodel that I've worked with, every beautiful girl that I've worked with doesn't like half their body. They always have something that they're going, well, on comparison, it's normal. So what I do is I find out where they do have something. We're too humble to admit what we see in others is in ourselves sometimes, and therefore we minimize ourselves. Mm-hmm. And that's where the dysmorphic comes. But the second we ask, where and when do I demonstrate and display the trait that I see in them in my own form?
Right.
And keep demonstrating and looking and when and where it happens until the quantity of that is equal to what they see, all of a sudden the dysmorphic changes and they all of a sudden see a more of a level field. Okay. And the moment their opinion of themselves is equal to what they perceive this person has, the dysmorphic view changes.
So how often do you have to do this? Because, you know, as we were saying that example with all that social media flooding, you were saying that you identified the people that
they admired.
And then for each of them.
For each one, we found the traits that they saw in them that they were comparing themselves to.
Yes.
And then found out where they had that to the same degree. Now, I had a 50-year-old woman who was saying, I can't compete with this younger 35-year-old girl. Mm-hmm. And I said, so what is it specifically about the 35-year-old girl that you don't think you compete with? Well, I just don't have the same tone. There's a little bit of sagging. My eyes are starting to get some bags and stuff like that. I said, so what is it about that this girl has? You think, well, she's got more sex appeal. And she can lure guys. I said, so where do you have sex appeal and lure guys? Because there are 7 areas of life that lure a guy. It's not just physical.
That's right.
Many women have this illusion that it's all about their physical. But when I ask thousands and thousands of men in the breakthrough experience, every week, I found out that they are looking for somebody that's attractive. They're looking for somebody who's intelligent, somebody that has ambition, somebody that has a desire to be with them, and wants to have a family with them potentially, somebody who's socially savvy, somebody that's also physically fit, somebody that's inspired by something. It's not just physical looks. So even though the 50-year-old didn't think she had the same comparisons, when we looked at the whole picture, she was more savvy business-wise, she had more things going for it, and there was no way the 35-year-old girl can compete with her once we put them all together.
Right, and that shifted her.
And her perspective of the girl was no competition. And the moment she did, it was like no big deal. And she immediately stood strong in her position and realized she had more to offer than the girl. And it was a mindset. It was purely a mindset. So whenever you're feeling dysmorphia, because you're perceiving yourself in a distorted way, which happens whenever we compare ourselves, go and find out what it is specifically. Don't just assume I can't compete.
Yeah.
What specifically is the trait, the action, the inaction that they do that I'm comparing? And what is it about it that and put it into context, what exactly is it about it that I'm judging? And then find out where you have that. I promise you that makes a difference. And all of a sudden levels the playing field, and you liberate yourself from this idea of absorption about how you're looking compared to other people. And you give yourself the power to shine and recognize your own magnificence.
Once again, such simple, easy to follow expertise. And I really would encourage our readers to pick up a copy of The Values Factor, because a lot of these things and exercises are detailed in that book. But again, great advice. Thank you so much, Dr. Demartini.
Thank you.